Ibu Nurmala, Ibu Mita, can we start now?
Sure.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, Bapak Ibu. Welcome to the Fulbright Research Presentation and first anniversary of GEPRIN. And we are thrilled to have you all here virtually to engage in this Fulbright research presentation. And your presence here signifies a commitment to advancing knowledge, sharing insights, and fostering a deeper understanding of this field. Before we begin, let me introduce myself. My name is Sri Lestari, and I'll be your MC for today's agenda. All right, Bapak Ibu, let me quickly inform you the schedule and the key session. Okay. All right, Bapak Ibu. We have a great speaker for today's meeting. Uh, the Honorable Vice Rector for Academic Field of Universitas Brawijaya, the Honorable Profesor Dr. Nurmala Simbolon from Politeknik Negeri Pontianak, Fulbright visiting scholar, and also President of GEPRIN, and the Honorable Professor Dr. Subhan Zein from Sunway University Malaysia, and also Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia, and good morning, everyone, for all the participants for today's meeting, and also the host of our agenda from Aminef. Good morning, Ibu Mita. All right, Bapak Ibu. So I would like to share to you. There are some sessions that we will have for today's meeting. The first one is opening, and there will be keynote speech from Aminef and also from Universitas Brawijaya. And there will be the main session, our keynote speaker, Ibu Nurmala, and also Professor Subhan Zein. And then the last one, there will be additional time for GEPRIN in presenting the video of the GEPRIN history and also GEPRIN implementation for this year. Bapak Ibu, during the session, hopefully keep your microphone muted and then please use the raise hand feature if necessary and use chat wisely and responsibly, and hopefully you can contribute to share your questions in the chat box or raise your hands during the Q&A session. Okay, Bapak Ibu, we will move to the first welcoming remarks from Universitas Brawijaya. The Honorable Professor Dr. Imam Santoso, as the Vice Rector in the academic field of Universitas Brawijaya, the time is yours.
Thank you for the opportunity for opening speech for the discussion today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning, everyone. The Honorable Professor Dr. Subhan Zein from Sunway University, Malaysia, and Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. The Honorable Professor Nurmala Simbolon, PhD, for President of GEPRIN. Thank for this collaboration between Brawijaya University and the Honorable Director of Fulbright and Imam. It is a great opportunity for us to invite our faculty members and students to join in this prestigious event and for the scholarship. The Honorable Director of Politeknik Negeri Pontianak, and of course our colleges, Dean of Faculty of Cultural Studies, Universitas Brawijaya, and also Pak Sharif and the other everyone we join in online meeting. The representative of Universitas Brawijaya, I would like to thank for the uh, Fulbrights, especially the guests from the Sunway University and Prof. Nurmala, who already arranged this event, and hopefully Brawijaya can and others can take advantage for the discussion, this presentation, because Brawijaya University have some program related with how to engage in the global partnership and to support also our faculty members for pursue the PhD abroad, of course. And for our student, we have programs, some program related for support them to international activities. And we have special program. We call the name is UB Star also to facilitate fully funded at least 1 month to get the international experience. And also now we accelerate the double degree programs for undergraduate or master or PhD. So I think this opportunity is very useful and beneficially for us to support our faculty members to join in this research grant. And we hope collaboration between UB, Fulbright Indonesia, and the Global English Practitioner Initiation in Indonesia Association, GEPRIN, and Politeknik Negeri Malang. It is one of partnership for strengthen the internationalization for Brawijaya University. And as I mentioned that we have many programs to support our faculty members, our students to get the international perspective. So I think this meeting today, this presentation and discussion is very helpful for us for engage more with the partnership. And the other hand, we support our faculty and students to get more information about this. Again, thanks very much for the Prof. Subhan Zein, Prof. Nurmala, and the other one who already make this event is success. And we hope everybody enjoy with this meeting. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning, everyone.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Bapak Professor Imam Santoso, for the welcoming remarks. And then now let's move to the second welcoming remarks from Aminef, Ibu Miftahul Mardiah, as the communication staff of Aminef. Time is yours.
Thank you so much, Ibu Sri. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Miftahul Mardiah, and on behalf of Aminef, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this Fulbright research presentation. This activity allows Fulbright scholarship recipients to disseminate the results of their research in the US to wider audience. And today we are especially honored to hear from Professor Nurmala Simbolon from Politeknik Negeri Pontianak, a visiting scholar at the University of Virginia, who will present her research on embedding local wisdom into English for specific purposes materials to exemplify the Fulbright spirit, connecting Indonesian values with global educational practice in innovative and meaningful way. We are also thankful that Professor Subhan Zein.
Yeah, let me check. Hopefully she will be in the
Yes,
Zoom
Yeah.
soon.
I'm here already. Sorry for the technical glitch. I was disconnected from Zoom for a few seconds. Anyway, let me continue the welcome remarks. Just a little bit more.
Hello, Ibu Mita. We cannot hear.
Okay, what about now? Is that okay? Is it okay already?
Yeah, now it is clear. Okay, please continue, Ibu Mita.
Thank you so much. Okay, let me continue about the Fulbright research presentation. We are honored to hear from Professor Nurmala Simbolon, who will present her research on embedding local wisdom into English for specific purpose materials, which also exemplifies the Fulbright spirit, connecting Indonesian values with global educational practice in innovative and meaningful ways. And we are also thankful that later Professor Subhan Zein, who will be here and open her presentation as well in the same topic. And in this meaningful moment, I also want to share with you that the Fulbright Visiting Scholar is currently accepting applications through November 3rd, 2025. So if you would like to experience doing postdoctoral research in the US with the Fulbright program, to follow Professor Nurmala's footsteps, please feel free. Okay, it seems I am disconnected again. All right, let me check again ya. There is some technical glitch here. Okay, I'll try to connect. I hope it is now okay. All right. Thank you so much. We would like to say to Universitas Brawijaya, Politeknik Negeri Pontianak, and GEPRIN for this meaningful collaboration. Thank you for making this event possible. Partnerships like this are what enable us to share important research widely and more meaningfully. We hope that today's session will inspire you to provide you with new perspectives and spark conversations on how English medium education in Indonesia can continue to evolve while staying rooted in our own culture and wisdom. Once again, thank you to our Fulbrighter, Professor Nurmala, and also to our collaborating partner and all of you for being here. I wish you will have an engaging and fruitful discussion. That is all from me. Thank you so much, and I'll give it back to you, Ibu Sri.
Okay, thank you Ibu Mita for the welcoming remarks from Aminef. All right, Bapak Ibu, now let's move to our main session that there will be speech and also sharing and presentation from Ibu Professor Dr. Nurmala Simbolon. She is the president of GEPRIN from Politeknik Negeri Pontianak and Fulbright Visiting Scholar 2024. And then there will be also the second keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Subhan Zein. But for the main session, it will be led by Ibu Yulia Hapsari. Okay. Hello, Ibu Yulia.
Halo, Ibu Teh.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ibu Yulia Hapsari is a lecturer at the Universitas Brawijaya and a member of GEPRIN, whose research interest is in global Englishes and also multilingual language teaching. Okay, Ibu Yulia, now it is time to you to present and also to introduce our keynote speaker for today's agenda. Okay, Ibu Yulia, time is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Ibu Tari. And good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yulia. I'll be your moderator for today. And first of all, I'd like to welcome to the two keynote speakers for this event. That is Professor Nurmala Simbolon, that is already on the Zoom, I believe. We are still waiting for Professor Subhan Zein to join us. Good morning, Prof. Mala. It's great to see you again in this valued event.
Good morning, Bu Yulia.
Okay. Hope everything runs well technically. Okay. I'd like to introduce Professor Nurmala Simbolon. Professor Nurmala, or Prof. Mala, we call it, is a professor of TEFL at Politeknik Negeri Pontianak and also a Fulbright Visiting Scholars 2024. Professor Nurmala earned her EDD, Educational Doctorate Degree in Applied Linguistics from Curtin University, Australia. Professor Nurmala is a specialist in internationalization of higher education, focusing on researching EMI. Today, Prof. Nurmala will deliver a presentation titled From Local Wisdom to Global English, Innovating English Medium Education in Indonesia. Now, without further ado, let's welcome Professor Nurmala Simbolon. Time is yours, Ibu.
Thank you very much, Bu Yulia. Let me check first. Am I audible, everyone? Okay.
Yes, Ibu.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen. Okay. First of all, I'd like to express and to warmly greet the Honorable Bapak Imam Santoso and Bapak Direktur Politeknik Negeri Pontianak, Dr. Widodo, and also Bapak Professor Subhan Zein, who will join us very soon, and the respected participant of this presentation. So thank you once again for introducing me, Ibu Yulia. I hope that everyone had a good morning this morning before coming to their work. Okay, this is the first slide. I would like to introduce that this was the time when one day before I left the country. So I was right in front of the rotunda. Maybe you can Google it. What rotunda is in the University of Virginia. So as the overview of my sharing, I prefer to say that sharing what I'm doing as I'm still doing this project. I will start with the introduction and comes with the conclusion, in particular some strategies or consideration for future research. So as in addition to what Ibu Yulia has introduced about me, so I would like to more specifically research on the instructional material designs. What is it? So in 2023, my collaborators and I were granted with some fund by the British Council of Indonesia, and we were to create teacher professional development resources for EMI and ESP teachers. So one of the module is learning material designs. So this is my topic that I work during the Fulbright visiting scholar. So a bit broader to the introduction. So higher education internationalization and English medium instruction are two practices that go hand in hand. So this is actually the umbrella that the research that I'm working on. So we are, or some of us are aware, or maybe some of us also have task and responsibility in terms of internationalization of your institution with the teaching staff mobility, student mobility or exchange, and curriculum innovation. Pak Imam already mentioned some strategies that Universitas Brawijaya has done to update with the double degree, and some university comes with a credit transfer system. So all of these efforts aims to raise the institutional profile. So what actually English medium instruction in the connection with the higher education internationalization? So there are some definition that are offered by scholars, and I took one that has been cited quite many times by projects or research. So it is the use of English language to teach academic subjects other than English itself. So it is not English language course, but it is mathematics course, and it is taught using English medium. So having said this, actually many practice without an explicit focus on language learning or specific language aims. But as I said, as you can see from the title, so it is a kind of innovation that I'm going to introduce from the research. And because this practice has been going on, and it is still going on, the internationalization of higher education, in particular, the use of EMI. So the research on this particular subject has been well documented. And 3 key stakeholders are recorded with their experience in relation to the EMI practice. So from the students' perspectives, so some students have limited English, even with sufficient English in the name of their English proficiency test score, they found that challenges. The challenges in following the lectures, and of course that in international setting where students come from multinationalities, students have difficulties in interacting with their fellow students. And from the administrators, there are some aspects that have been recorded. And one of the key issue is matching the curriculum with overseas partners. Of course, that each university nowadays is seeking their strategies to improve their education quality. So in terms of that, when one university wants to find a potential partner overseas, so there need to be negotiation, discussion, and to match the curriculum. And what about the teachers themselves, as they are the frontliners of this initiative? So the research has reported that one of the main challenges is their pedagogical knowledge. And why this is very important? Because it is now there is a significant change from using Indonesian language in Indonesia context to using English to deliver their content, and also how they can engage with foreign language, and with the facts that some students come with the various learning abilities, either in English proficiency or academic abilities. So one of the top reported studies also that they report that learning material design is one of the needs of the teachers to present EMI. And research and scholars have also underscored that the role of English for specific purposes, or ESP teachers, are highlighted within the agenda of internationalization of higher education. What are the roles can be? So the teachers, ESP teachers, can bridge the language and content gap, and to support EMI content teachers to perform their tasks in the classroom, and to prepare students to learn in an EMI environment. Having said these key 3 roles, it doesn't mean that ESP teachers have no challenges. The studies also recorded that ESP teachers have challenges to implement or to play this role. So there is a need to revisit the current approach of ESP by adopting that ESP in broader term. It can entails English for academic purposes, which is that English that is needed in immediate situation where the students sit in English medium or in the classroom, or English for occupational purposes, the language that is needed when they are a graduate or the graduate of a university or programs, the programs that they are doing. So how this role can be done? So this is not the innovation that I would like to introduce, and also to familiarize the term of integrating content and language in higher education, or ICLHE. So some of us may be familiar with the CLIL, or content and language integrated learning, that is famous or commonly used in education level. So with this term ICLHE, it is aimed to the higher education sector. So it is a dual focus learning. And it is a conceptual support framework to support students' learning in language and their disciplinary, in language and mathematics, in language and business. So it is to say academic literacy. So how this ICLHE or ICLHE to be used to support students' academic literacy. So it is an approach within this project. It is an approach to identifying strategies where EMI and ESP teacher can collaborate to present their teaching tasks. So it is very context dependent. So there is no like prescriptive model from one programs like engineering to mathematics. So it is very context dependent. So need analysis should be there. So it is not a prescriptive model once again. So need analysis is the very beginning of the stage. So a little bit introductions about the CLIL or ICLHE. So Coyle and her colleagues, when introducing this term, they also comes with the ideas, the framework of 4Cs in order to help the university administrators or university stakeholders to develop the syllabus. So starting from the culture, and the culture of where it is, like in Indonesia and Indonesian higher education in a specific of study program. So it is very context dependent. Once again, I want to highlight the context dependence. And within the culture, there is an aspect that what content that you are going to deliver to the student, and what kind of cognition that you are going to develop within the course that you are going to offer. And again, that another side, there is a communication skills needed within this 4C. So once again, collaboration is key, but in Indonesia, it is still underdeveloped. So this is one of the purposes of this project. So I would like to discuss more specifically from the C of the 4C, which is communication, where from this framework or this tool, I drew how the collaboration with between EMI and ESP teacher later on. So within the triptych language, Coyle and her colleagues introduced this tool to identify the language needs relevant to the content skills, which enable students to learn and use the language at the same time. So there are three keywords here: language of learning, language for learning, and through learning. With the of learning, it is beyond the vocabulary. I learned a lot from this framework. I have to say that during my teaching, I mostly focus on the vocabulary without very significantly introduce the discourse of the study programs that the students are taking. So I will give some examples from some studies after these slides. And what about the language for learning? This is the language to enable the students to perform tasks in the classroom. So if you, in the previous slides, I said that English as for academic purposes in immediate situation, what the students are going to do in the classroom. Are they going to discuss something with their classmate? Are they going to describe something, or they will get a chance to ask questions, ask for clarification? So these are the language for learning that needs to be prepared before the students put into the EMI environment. And what about a language through learning? So it is emergent. We will see this when the classroom takes place. And I would really recommend that when the classrooms of this implementation it is very worth doing to record or to overview the recording. And as I said, that's what about the language of learning? So this is one of the key points where the ESP needs to innovate. The ESP teachers need to innovate their teaching. So it is beyond specific vocabulary or grammar patterns. So in the law course, for example, so in legal writing, analysis, understanding complex legal, so this is the discourse that happens in the law course. And in marine and fishery, it is very technical academics, and for the safety reasons, there needs to be, or the standardized communication is there that needs to be learned by the students. And in business programs, it is the topic of my project. Business presentation is one of the skills important for the students in their life after the graduations, and many more, even like writing reports, emails, and navigating cross-culture communications. So move narrow to the research background, the topic that I chose, why local wisdom as the content. So this is in line with the national or Indonesian development agenda. So Indonesian within the government agenda, Indonesian government wants to strengthen the citizen identity or the young people identity prides. So how to do this? One of the ways is to preserve cultural heritage and shape students' character and identity through their cultural identity. And based on some research that have been done, that integrating local wisdom can be enhancing learning quality and of course that meaningful purpose and learning engagement, because students report that the learning with the local wisdom can be more interesting because they are relevant to their culture. So back to the 3 examples of the programs that I introduced from the previous slides. So in law, so maybe the administrator of university can think one of the course that they may offer, like customary law. Hukum adat are very rich in Indonesia. So when the EMI programs can introduce this, it will, I believe it can enrich the learning of the students, not only for Indonesian students, for the overseas partners, how they see that the Indonesian culture. And what about in marine and fisheries, for example? There are fishing gears, and as for 20 years, I work or teach mostly in marine and fishery. There are some traditional fishing gears in here in Kalimantan. So why not introducing this course to the students, to the international audience and partners? And wooden fishing vessel is one of the examples that have been recorded. This innovation was created by Politeknik Negeri Surabaya. And in business program, Syariah business, Indonesia is the largest country with the country with the largest number of Muslim people. So this is very interesting to let people know how the richness of Indonesian culture and languages can enrich the foreign language learning and the local values and practices, as this is the topic of my project. And again, why business program, not marine, not the other engineering? As one of the most popular programs offering EMI courses in the global context, including in Indonesia, that's business program. So we start from the most and well-documented research on this particular field. So the objective of the research, it is a showcase, it is a case study to show that a research innovation in integrating the local wisdom in English medium instruction. So why ESP? Started with a smaller unit. So under the collaborations of ICLHE provides EMI content and ESP teachers. So I work on the ESP course at the first time. So within this objective, to achieve this goal, there are some research activities that I work. So first of all, to design instructional materials and to examine teachers and students' perceptions about the integration of the local wisdom in their learning materials, and to foster teacher collaborations. And with the the last point, to identify Indonesian to contribute to development of global English. I purposely made it in italic type, as I believe and I hope that Professor Subhan Zein will elaborate more with this. So within the globalization, now that it is also one way to identify how Indonesian speaker can contribute to the development of global Englishes. So the research questions are here. And with the first two, these two research questions I did when I was doing my visiting scholars. And with the third one, I continued it after the visiting scholar. So what are the research questions that I'm going to share with the findings later on? It is to seek the teacher and student perspectives in integrating the local wisdom in English medium instruction materials, and how the local wisdom materials, based instructional materials designed through the collaborative between ESP language and EMI content teachers. And then how the teachers and students feel the instructional material design when it is implemented. And the research designs under the agenda of, or the thinking of, transformative education, which is actually it is the focus of the Indonesian Kemdikti Saintek at the moment. So this study adopts research and development, or R&D design, by adopting the model of ADDIE. So starting from the analysis and evaluation, and it is a cycle. So when the evaluations ends and then comes with the analysis to see the progress, to monitor if there is a need to innovate in other aspects. And I want to highlight that this research was done with the participatory research, meaning that this research was conducted with people, with teachers, not for them, but and not on them. So with this participatory research, so I have to admit that along with the teachers, we are going to contribute to the transformative education in Indonesia. So here is the data collections from need analysis to evaluations. With the analysis to the evaluation, I need to highlight with the distinct colors, these two parts were done in relation to the contribution of the Fulbright visiting scholar that I did last year. So with the drafting syllabus, I was given a chance to sit in or to be one of the participants in the classroom, two classroom, discourse analysis and assessment in ESL. And with the expert judgments, one of the experts is from the USA or from the host institutions. So with this variety of data, so data analysis adopts mixed methods, which is quantitatively for the quantitative data and mathematically for open-ended questions and interview data. And here is the information of the teachers within the testing stage and the development. So with the different colors, the MT and HH, they are the teachers who implemented the instructional materials. And this is the findings from each stage. From the need analysis, the majority of the teachers agreed with or to the integration of the local wisdom. Please take note that the survey itself it was created with the discussion with several teachers. So the teachers also co-constructed the design of the survey. So what do you think about local wisdom, how it's in relation to the business program and so on? So this is the finding when given to the 46 teachers, and when they were asked if they can provide some example of the local wisdom, local products and creative industry were the most frequently mentioned. They introduced, including, especially in the local products, the food and beverage. Culinary is very famous or popular among their responses. And then digital business, in relation to this era with the digital business, is the third one. And the last one, local values and beliefs, is one of the topics that needs to be integrated in the instructional materials. So the themes reflect cultural values and practice, and UMKM and digital business are two practices that are relevant in a broader community or context in Indonesia, especially in Indonesian national development. And what about from the students' perspectives? So again, that the majority, most students said that they agree with the integrations. And there is an interesting finding in this survey. I'm very interested to see if the students would find this integration exciting or enthusiastic. And with this number, even it is not too promising, about 70%, but it is understandable as this is an innovation. They haven't experienced that in their ESE, so they mostly choose many of their responses are located in the neutral answer. And I also gather the information of the students English, and 71.5 students comes with the limited English. How the students' English proficiency it was gathered in these institutions, the students get 2 times of English institutional English proficiency test. The first one is on the first year, and the second one on the last year of their study. And the students here, the 116 students, are in at the end of their second year study. And no significant association was found between their responses about the agreement to their English proficiency level, meaning that either the students with the limited English or upper intermediate English, they don't mind with the integration. So it is a positive hope to introduce these materials. And when they asked about the example that they can introduce from their locals, and the answer or their responses resemble the teachers' perspectives. Core cultural values and practices among their responses. So here are the examples like gotong royong, gawai dayak, and again that some tangible aspects like food. Yeah. And next to the stages 2 and 3, design and development, how the collaboration was done. So underpinned by the triptych language, so EMI teachers provide a simple syllabus of their course and some reading materials and information about the classroom culture. For example, some teachers that I gave the students recording a lecture in English, and I gave some reading text. So these resources were collected for the ESP teachers to navigate or to orchestrate the learning activities. So within this task, the ESP teachers and the researcher, in this case, that we co-constructed to set the learning outcome, to design the learning activities, to adapt some texts. And here is the output, just a brief introduction about the output. So the learning outcome under the pedagogical of project-based learning. So the learning outcome is said to be that the students are able to present the local wisdom-based business innovation. And the design has 7 topics, from the local philosophy to the pitching a business idea. I need to highlight that with the PBL or project-based learning, it reflects the culture not in a smaller unit, but in a broader unit in Direktorat Pendidikan Tinggi Vokasi. So what about the expert judgments feedback? 2 key feedback that were provided is aimed to provide visible learning or clarity to the students. So with the clarity, some words may be used more than once is an addition after the judgment was given. So it is very insightful for me as a researcher, as the activity was aimed to match the vocabulary and the text, but with giving this some words may be used more than once, it is a kind of flexibility with the multi-truth, as the students have their own perspectives or values. So this enhances my journey as an educator, to be honest. And the other topic that was given by the expert is scaffolding. Scaffolding from the smaller, maybe some of us are familiar with the Bloom taxonomy, from the lower to the higher thinking methods. So, and oral skills is introduced from one unit to every unit, to the last units. Before the judgment, the oral skills practices were given only in 2 units. And what about the teachers' feedback through the testing units? So they provide invaluable feedback. As we can see here, they suggested to add more authentic resources. So authentic is one of the keywords in this project, in the forms of video of presentation, and time allocation in the syllabus is a bit insufficient. It is worth to consider that with the time allocation, it also, of course, that as a researcher, we adopt and adapt this feedback. But on the other side, that this project also, from this point, that there is a need, this lends to one module for the teacher professional development, how to allocate time within a lot of or several learning tasks given in the instructional materials. And now we come to the stage 4. Let me check my time. And from this stage, I would like to give you some information. So the teachers who implemented these instructional materials are from different classroom. One from EMI classroom, the other is from ESP classroom. So let's see how the students' perceptions from the 2 classes. 33 students completed the survey, and the majority of the students agree when they ask if the learning materials make them enthusiastic. So this is really a good hope for the researcher and the teachers when the students found that interesting and enthusiastic. But with the only 3 respondents selected neutral, it is worth to examine. Later on, I will discuss this with this neutral. So why these students have this high agreement, the high agreement with these materials? So it seems that the students has personal connection and familiarity. So the words my local culture, the most terms or phrases existed in their responded, and one response that I present in this presentation. Local wisdom is often related to our daily life. So it is daily life, such as tradition and custom. This makes the material easier to understand, even make it easier to understand and encourage students to participate. And with the easier is another word or terms that mostly or frequently emerge from their responses. Increase confidence and discussion. So with this familiarity, so the material increase their confidence to participate and discussions, as we can see in the quote that I present. And I more specifically very curious with the neutral in particular. So especially in digging the responses between EMI classroom and ESP classroom. So if we can see here, there was like a slight difference between EMI, students in EMI classroom and ESP classroom. The students in EMI classroom engagement slightly higher than in the ESP classroom. As I mentioned that how I did this by grouping their responses and then delving into the natural responses. Let me discuss how this can be interpreted. In EMI classroom, the teacher could use a way that boosts the students' engagement as they have knowledge and experiences as the content teachers. So from the recording of the classroom, of one of the classroom, I could see that how the EMI content teacher can exemplify a case when the students ask a question. So with several cases that she has encountered, has studied, so without any significant challenge that the teachers can elaborate in more detail. So the students feels that connections. While in ESP classroom, we have to firstly underscore that this material is generally well received. I'm not trying to say that EMI classroom is better than ESP classroom, but I want us to see that there is a uniqueness from the role of each class here. So from ESP classroom, so the teachers with the neutral responses, there is a need for the teachers to refine, to elaborate more the integration of the local wisdom to maximize the engagement. So explicitly linking to specific English learning objectives. So when I observed the recording, so when the students ask about the case, the teachers describe using the explanation or descriptive text. So this is very interesting finding from this project. But please take a note that by considering some other factors with the finding, students and teachers' English proficiency and teachers' teaching experience and profession. And after the implementation, I conducted some interviews with the teachers, and the teachers offer three main topics. First, from EMI teachers and ESP teachers corroborate the students' positive attitude toward the integration. Both of them said that, wow, the student excited with this project, with the materials. And the students have a level high of engagement in our classroom. So from this point, so this finding confirmed the initial need analysis finding. The second one, that EMI teachers emphasize the importance of practice, which focuses on language. This is, to be honest, this is one of my favorite findings to increase my excitement of the study. Why? From EMI teachers admit that from these materials, I realized that, or it reminds us that content teachers also needs to focus more on language. And as we can see here, the teacher said that, oh, okay, with the classroom, that's okay. But with the final project report, we need to emphasize this. So this finding or this voice lends to the assessment in EMI classroom. So this can be one of the assessment part in EMI course. And the EMI teachers also learns that developing descriptive language skills in explaining local terms rather than direct translation. So students said that from the recording, so they thought that every term needs to be translated in English, but actually it is not the case. But with that descriptive language, they can elaborate the meaning or the definition of several local terms. And what about the ESP teachers? ESP teacher highlights the effective aspect of the material using authentic texts. So the ESP teachers also lend the sequences of the learning activities from identifying a text to creating text. So I give one example here. In the text of Trihita Karana, so there is a sentence or phrase said that Trihita Karana is blah, blah, blah. It focuses on, and then when it comes to the practices, the students coming from the other part of the island, say from Kalimantan Barat, so the students can adapt this pattern. Gawai Dayak is an annual blah, 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 and it celebrates something blah, blah, blah. So the teachers, DSP teachers, wow, from a text actually students can identify and then they can create the text. So the takeaway points from this, so an authentic text is key to modeling language performance, and generic structure plus local terms is the contextualizations of English toward the global Englishes, which is we look forward to hear from Bapak Subhan Zein later on. And the last point that was recommended by the teachers from the EMI teachers, the EMI teachers said that English language teachers can familiarize themselves from some cases through journals and relevant materials. And this approach, ICLHE, is particularly relevant to entrepreneurship and business exhibition courses, envisioning a collaborative research project. What about the ESP teacher's recommendations? She recommends that the programs in line with the ESP, business administration, digital business, and this is one of the key highlights from this project, students having prior knowledge of business concept and experience with pitching, meaning that there needs to be adjustment where this material to be set in the syllabus or the curriculum of a program. So the takeaways, so EMI and ESP teacher collaboration, again, is very important. and review on course arrangement is necessary. So as the conclusions, I would like to summarize that the project evidence that positive attitude comes from the stakeholders, students and teachers, with the integrations of the local wisdom. And the local wisdom provides authenticity. Contextualizing here, in this context, project-based learning is adopted and course arrangement is needed. These instructional materials is suggested to be given after the students have some materials, business-related materials, so they can have some basic knowledge about business. Next, integrating content and learnings means that simplifying the learning goals. As we can see, within the project-based learning, the learning goals, this one, the students are able to present a business, local wisdom related business innovation. Presentation is the key skills in business program, and then the local wisdom is the content. So simplify with several scaffolding activities and materials. Next, the aspects to include in the teacher professional development, as we can see, I would like to remind. So first of all, that the teachers need to be given some training or workshop how to allocate materials to support the students' learning. Some materials can be relevant in the classroom, some materials can be relevant outside the classroom. And again, that the teachers, the teacher professional development in terms of describing things, describing concept is one of the topic for TPD for EMI teachers. The last one, globalizing English education in multilingual cultural Indonesia. It is a way to a democracy for English language users. And again, that this lends to some elaboration that we are expecting and looking forward to hearing from Professor Subhan Zein. As for the recommendation, yeah, this study is limited. It is just about the beginning. So for the future research, participatory research on dual assessment, as the teachers having done focus on the language and content, they just focus on the content at the moment. So presentation, content and language proficiency with longitudinal studies, of course. And another study or research can be done with the R&D project in EMI content teachers. While this project aims for ESP classes, so entrepreneurship integrating local wisdom is recommended, or digital marketing integrating content, local wisdom is also very interesting. The last recommendation, seeking research and teaching collaboration on this topic with other competencies. It is the presentation at the research or at this research being presented today. What about in negotiation skills? And what about in other programs? For example, STEM. Well, I have finished my presentations, and here are some references. And in this special moment with the 4 minutes left for me, I would like to express my gratitude to Fulbright on behalf of under the arrangement of Aminep, Ibu Mita at this presentation sessions. This photo is just a bit rich experience that I gained during the visiting scholar. As I mentioned, some that within the visiting scholar, I didn't only do my research, everyone. I enjoyed myself. So this photo is just a bit of the programs that I did. So I had a chance to attend discourse analysis classes with some gorgeous, great people, and with national sport in the US, right in the sports station in the University of Virginia, and with the Halloween and the Thanksgiving. So far, I just knew this from the movie, and then I was really thrilled when I experienced that way. And I also got a chance, I got some additional funding to visit Kansas State University under the Outreach Lecturing Fund. So I got a chance. They facilitated me as the academic personnel coming from vocational higher education. So I attend or visited one campus with the aviation program. And last one, the last day at the university, I presented before the colleagues in there. And I would like to end my presentation with a local wisdom of Indonesia. But thank you, Fan. Okay, maybe everyone, if you like to open your audio, after Malang, you can say, what is it? Yeah, jalan-jalan ke Kota Malang, something like that. So you are aware, I don't have to guide you. So it is a thank you, Pan. Pan is a very local wisdom of Indonesia. I would like to express my gratitude to all of us here who make this program happen, and in particular for the University of Brawijaya. Okay, join me with some very cultural fun thing. Jalan-jalan ke Kota Malang.
Jangan lupa
Ya,
cakep.
jangan lupa ke Universitas Brawijaya. Local
Cakep.
wisdom bukan sekedar wacana, melainkan harta karun menuju Indonesia Jaya.
Cakep.
Semuanya, I hand back the program to Ibu Yulia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Nurmala. With the pun, the closing pun, that was so Indonesian. Thank you so much. And everyone, we have learned many valuable insights of inclusiveness potential in EMI within ESP context. We have also just learned that how can we integrate our precious local wisdom in learning English. With Bu Nurmala's fruitful research finding, we're really looking forward, Ibu, for the next step. That is a training program for teacher development. That will be really fun to kind of explore our local wisdom potential and how it can scaffold and support students' learning to excel their learning English. And now I would like to invite participants to post their questions to Ibu Mala related to her presentation. Please use your raise hand features so then I can see you that want to ask question to Ibu Mala. I have two screens over here with the participants, so I will choose one from one screen and another participants from the other screen. So does anyone have any question for Ibu Mala? So while waiting for the participants, Ibu, maybe you can have a bit of break and get some sip of drink to relax. And Bapak Syed Sukandi, Bapak Syed, would you, okay. Would you please directly talk to Ibu Mala and ask your question? Silahkan Bapak.
Thank you, Ibu Sri. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for the invitation from Aminef. I was informed about this Fulbright research presentation. I'm interested about research of Ibu Professor Nurmala about local wisdom and how it integrates into the English medium instruction. So I take notes on the local wisdom somehow it reminds me about the indigenous knowledge, especially recognizing Indonesia is large from Aceh to Papua. So I'm thinking about the application of the local wisdom and the indigenous knowledge. And then I found a sentence of your example. Gawai Dayak is an annual Thanksgiving for the Dayak people. And then I found that word Thanksgiving. So when we transfer the context of Indonesian heritage, cultural heritage, into English, somehow we as a teachers need to be aware of the how the meaning in English can, conflate in that kind of sense. And that's the first question. And my second question is about the overall idea of nationalism in that sense. When we introduce the local wisdom into the English teaching materials to students, and then they begin to write or they study, how would we situate the national interests regarding the local wisdom existence? Thank you, Ibu Nurmala. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ibu Yulia, should I do that respond to
Yeah.
the question directly?
Okay, Ibu. With the time constraint, I believe it's better to directly respond one question.
Okay. Well, I saw Ibu Lydia also raise her hand, so I try to make it brief. So thank you for the question, Pak Shahid. It is a very big question. Yeah, actually, it is for policymakers of Indonesia in education sector, but it lends to some topics that needs to be done in the research once again. So with the Thanksgiving, Pak Shahid, are you from Kalimantan Barat? No, okay. Well, okay. I need to be, as I believe that the owner of the culture is the owner takes the ownership, how they can manage, how they can present that to the audience or to the public. So with the Thanksgiving you mentioned, maybe, yeah. So with the Gawe Dayak is if we have to say that in bahasa, we can say that in bahasa Indonesia adalah semacam ucapan terima kasih atas panen, ya, panen raya seperti itu. And actually there are some cultural things. So with the Thanksgiving, please clarify my understanding. Maybe with the using Thanksgiving, maybe it is leading to like Western term, so something like that. So one of the strategy that we can use is that we can use in our term. So what is syukuran in bahasa Indonesia? If we still syukuran is very local term, we can use that Gawe Dayak is an event of syukuran in the bracket Thanksgiving. So the international scope, oh, okay, they have syukuran. That it is very particular term for them. So this is my thinking to answer or to respond to your questions. And with the nationalism, this has been my question actually. When the cultural identities are emerged, how about nationalism? So the potential of primordialism or something like segmentation is possible. So I thought that at the first time, but to my excitement that one of the, I didn't present this in the project or this presentation, but from the classroom, actually, some of the students said that, well, it is very interesting, the classroom from Kalimantan, when they see that some cultural from Java, can we use the teacher in the interview that, can we use the culture, not from our culture, but from Java? So from this point, I could see that, so actually the students didn't that overthinking as I was. So they are really open-minded to see that with the question, ma'am, is it okay that I use not from my local, but the other from Java? I want to try that. So that's the only thing that I can say now, but I think there is nothing to worry at this stage, but it can land that the aspect that we can take care when we deliver the content. That's all I can say, Bapak.
Okay, I hope it answered for the time being, Pak Syed. Okay, thank you. Now let's go to Ibu Lydia from UPI. Would you please make your question brief and clear, Ibu? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the chance. Thank you, Ibu Nurmala Simbolon. I have only one short question. So, if I had a chance to teach English for a medical student, does local wisdom applicable for them? How to integrate local wisdom with medical term or exact knowledge in this case? Thank you.
Very interesting. Ibu Lydia, it is very interesting indeed. I really meant that. As I said again, that I didn't present medical in my examples. So in medical term, so again that it is very possible. But again that the model of ADDI, it is not just a model. So the analysis play a very important roles. When I heard your questions, and then I was thinking, when I was in Australia, how Australian nurse learned about the nurse in Papua, help delivering baby. They were shocked, and then how they understood that how to say ramuan that they use, that's really impact on the medical reasons. So they said that, wow, I just learned something. I thought that the technology that we have here in Australia, actually in Papua, the nurse just help the baby with their local wisdom, she said. So once again, that how the program from medical faculty they can offer some traditional treatment. Of course, that the medical treatment that has been studied and proved to be safe and safe for the life, of course, that because we know that some traditional treatment are still in the big questions and need to be investigated. So back to the analysis, Ibu. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ibu Nurmala, and the audience for the enthusiasm about the topic. And we're still waiting for Bapak Subhan to join us. I haven't noticed him.
I am here. I've been here in the past 3 minutes.
Oh, okay, Bapak. Welcome, Pak Subhan.
Thank you. Salam, everyone.
Okay.
Good morning to you
Okay.
all.
Good morning,
Morning,
Professor Subhan.
Bapak.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Prof. Nurmala, for the excellent talks and for the audience for the active participation. Now, we come to the second agenda that will be keynote speaker with Pak Subhan. We have the privilege here of having Professor Subhan Zein, who will present English language education in Indonesia from monocentricity to pluricentricity. Prof. Subhan is a professor at Sunway University and also visiting professor at Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. He is currently a Deputy Dean of Research and Sustainability and also head of Center for Higher Education Research at Sunway University. Congratulations, Prof. And Professor Subhan Zein has also spent some 14 years teaching at higher education institution in Australia and is really well known for his applied linguistic reputable and impactful academic works. And he is Routledge Asia TOEFL Book Series Editor-in-Chief and also 2 times winner of Australia's Best Researcher Award in English Language Literature. Now, without further ado, I would love to invite Professor Subhan Zein to deliver his presentation. Time is yours, Prof.
Thanks very much, Ibu Yulia. Can everyone hear me well?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Clear.
Thank you to Dr. Shariful Muttaqin, my longtime friend and colleague. Thanks very much for the invitation, and Professor Nurmala Simbolon to connect me with the community in GEPRIN, yeah? So it's a great honor and privilege for me to present to you one piece of my research on English language education in Indonesia. And in order to do that, let me share my slide. Can everyone see my slide?
Okay.
Can you see my slide? Is
Yes.
it clear?
Yes, Professor.
Okay, all right. Okay, so let me just move this up. Okay, all right. So my topic is English language education in Indonesia, from monocentricity to pluricentricity. Here's the overview of the presentation. First of all, I'd like to talk about the history and development of the English language in Indonesia. And then the second part is the traditionalist versus the globalist ideological contestation, which is the third part of this presentation, transcending the traditionalist and globalist spectrum, and then the pluricentric movement. And then I'd like to talk about the connection between pluricentric English and the theory of superglossia and the global south. And then I will conclude the presentation. So first of all, let's talk about the history and development of the English language in Indonesia. So if you look at textbooks and research publications by Indonesian scholars, then you will find that the earliest time when we had English in the education system, that was in the early 1900s, when French was abolished in European primary schools, and then it was replaced by English. And then English also entered the tertiary education when it was officially taught at Universitas Nasional in Pasar Minggu, Jakarta. So UNAS introduced an English language program in 1949. And then in 1967, the Ministry of Education and Culture stipulated a decree number 96. And this decree designated English as the first foreign language to be officially taught in secondary schools. So that was ahead of French and German, two popular languages at that time. And in 1990, this was further specified by a presidential decree number 28 by President Suharto, where English was made a compulsory subject at all levels of secondary schools. So that was for students in SMP, SMA, and SMK. So sekolah menengah pertama, sekolah menengah atas, and sekolah menengah kejuruan. And then, what about the positioning of English itself? Well, English is important, but not so much. It is not so important because it would not be made a second language the way it is in Brunei Darussalam, in Malaysia, in Singapore, or the Philippines. And it is important, but not that important because it would not be made an official language alongside Indonesian. So that's the position that was taken by early language planners such as Sultan Takdir Ali Shahbana and Dr. Amran Halim. So these people were early language planners of Indonesia, and they made that decision a few decades ago. And this position has been maintained. So despite the popularity of English in Indonesia at the moment, it still cannot be made an official language. Now, the idea of English as the main foreign language in Indonesia has to do with monocentric English. So some of you may have already heard the concept of native speakerism. What is native speakerism? It is a prevalent ideological view which requires the adherence to the native speaker norms. So Adrian Holiday, the originator of the concept, said that people think that the native speakers have got the right to determine everything when it comes to the English language norm, the way the language is used, right? So this adherence to the native speaker norm and the use of the native speaking English varieties has been prevalent because that's the way people teach and learn English. So models of English have been made on the basis of the occurrence of two major varieties. The first one is the British English, and the second one is the American English. So standard English developed in the UK, characterized by the publication of Samuel Johnson's A Dictionary of the English Language in 1755. And if you're familiar with the history of the English language, then you would know that we also have the Webster's Dictionary. So the Webster's Dictionary, published in 1828, marked the beginning of what is called American English. But as you also know, there are also different varieties of English called the native varieties of English. You may not be familiar with this person, Professor Randolph Quirk. However, he was the one who came up with the idea of institutionalizing English. So the institutionalization of English began when Kirk argued that we need to institutionalize some varieties of English, and these are American English and the British English. However, there are other varieties that could be regarded in similar levels, and these are Australian English, and then New Zealand English, and then South African English, and other Englishes such as New England English and Yorkshire English. However, for this varieties, American English and British English, these are institutionalized in the sense that they are being fully described and with defined standards observed by the institutions of state. However, those varieties such as Australian English are rather informally established. So that was the statement of Sir Kirk in 1990. But if you're familiar with the history, then you will find something funny about it, because in 1991, then Australia developed the Macquarie Dictionary of Australian English. So I read it as a kind of response to this queer identification of Australian English being rather informally established. But that's the idea. So now we have varieties of English, native speaking English, that are institutionalized: American English, British English, and Australian English. Now, what does it have to do with the traditionalists and the globalists in Indonesia? The globalist refers to a group of educationists, including experts in linguistics and applied linguistics. And these people argue for English, right? Argue for English because of its importance for global communication. People such as Professor Sunyono Darjowijoyo, Professor Nurul Huda, and Lauder argue that the inclination for English is part of a natural socio-linguistic process happening within society. And then other people, such as Peter Lowenberg, argued for increasing the status of English into additional language. So according to Professor Peter Lowenberg in 1991, English should not be a foreign language anymore. It should be an additional language. More recently, Dr. Ariadna from Universitas Negeri Medan argued that it is necessary to alter or to change the status of English from a foreign language into a second language. Now, in the opposite direction, we have the traditionalists. Who are the traditionalists? These are people or scholars who argue against English being given a favorable treatment because they see English to be a threat. They argue that the widespread knowledge of English would bring a negative consequence on Indonesian culture, negative consequences on the values and behavior of the Indonesian people. So people such as Gunarwan thought of the negative impact of foreign languages such as English. And this famous professor from Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia, Haidar Al-Wasila, maintained that there is a need to regulate English through a deliberate language planning where English would be given a secondary role behind Indonesian. Well, of course, this idea originated from linguistic imperialism. So many of you are already familiar with Robert Philipson, of course, when he launched a fierce attack against the native speakerism ideology. He argued that the extent to which English spread, especially in post-colonial contexts, has been the result of linguistic imperialism, which is a mechanism of maintaining structural power and global domination through the spread and use of the language. And he also argued, in addition to that the widespread use of English would gradually or eventually threaten linguistic ecology. English would eat up languages with smaller number of speakers and eventually threaten those languages with larger populations. Now, when we look at the positioning of scholars within Indonesia, I came up with this spectrum. So this traditionalist and globalist spectrum is identifies the categorical distinction of scholarship positions. So on the left side, we have traditionalists, and on the right side, we have the globalists. And in between, we have a large number of scholars in linguistics, applied linguistics, and Indonesian studies in the middle, right? So this is basically the spectrum where many of the people stand on one extreme of the continuum or one extreme of the spectrum, and other people stand on the other side of the spectrum, and the most of them are somewhere in the middle. Now, there is an ideological contestation involving the globalists and the traditionalists in Indonesia. So as I said, this is the Professor Haidar Al-Wasila, a very kind and generous person. I met him in Bandung several years ago, and this person said that the heavy emphasis on foreign language, in particular English, is detrimental because it only serves as a process of continuing domination of English, akin to linguistic imperialism once postulated by Philipson. And as a result of that, consequently, Indonesians run the risk of having their culture brainwashed, of having their culture polluted by liberal Western values. So for that reason, he asserted the need to bolster the feelings of nationalism within the education system. However, there is counter-argument, and there are different people arguing against Professor Al-Wasila. Professor Nuril Huda from Universitas Negeri Malang, for example, viewed Indonesian language planners as placing too much emphasis on what he called the emotional dimension of language planning. And in that respect, Professor Sunyono Darjowijoyo agreed with him. He said that the apprehension about the negative impact of cultural influence drawn from foreign language teaching was underpinned more by cultural chauvinism rather than an objective or rational attitude. And that's, according to Professor Darjowijoyo, that's primarily because we think that of the great Indonesian, the idea that was started by the Majapahit Empire, right? Where we have Indonesia Raya, or the Great Indonesia conception. So because of that reason, then we cannot really think of other cultures influencing our culture. That's according to him. And then Dr. Lauder argued that the idea of Western values posing a threat is not so much a criticism of the West. However, it is more like an apprehension or the worry that the local values are not strong enough or good enough In fact, according to him, modernization is not the same as westernization. So that's an interesting ideological contestation happening. Now, let me give you an example of how this ideological contestation happens at the grassroots level. Of course, you are familiar with primary English education, and back in the early 2000s, right, late 1990s, early 2000s, um, primary English education was so popular. And at that time, the popularity of primary English education reached greater heights by the turn of the millennium. At that time, parents in many parts of the country supported primary English education. And me, myself, I was adding to the argument that was already made by Professor Icha Khadija, Liz Amin Lestari, and Professor Rahmayanti, who argued that primary English education um, is important for an increasingly globalized world, and it is also important for successful language acquisition, especially for early learners, in this case, for children in primary schools. Now, however, we also need to be objective because the apprehension, right, felt by Professor Al-Wasilah and others was warranted, because for Professor Al-Wasilah, Indonesia was not only not ready in terms of educational infrastructure, but also Indonesia at the time suffered from a lack of qualified and competent teachers. Well, of course, we are still experiencing this. However, the number has reduced to a large extent. Now, at the same time, children's language acquisition, right, is also affected because children are not cognitively mature. In fact, according to him, children are confused by a barrage of linguistic input. And this linguistic confusion does not lead to effective learning. And as a matter of fact, at the moment, we are still dragging our feet in improving our first language education. And this is much more urgent to fix. Character building and critical thinking are first and foremost developed through the first language, not a second language. In this case, not English. And this concern is even more substantiated because of the fact that in their effort to teach a local content subject or English, schools have opted for English and dropped indigenous languages from the primary school timetable. So if you look at the timetable at that time, then you would find that there were many schools, right, that decided to drop indigenous languages. So rather than teaching Javanese, or rather than teaching Madurese or Badayu or Kedasan Dusun in different areas of Indonesia, then those schools decided to teach English instead, because the parents did not want to send children to study in a school that does not teach English. And at the same time, we also had these two policies, Rintisan Sekolah Berstandar Internasional or SBI, and International Sekolah Berstandar Internasional or SBI. So the RSBI and SBI policies happened at the time of President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, resulted in the idea of schools offering instruction in the English language. Now, what is happening at the moment? Well, at least in the past 10 years, I could see the directions where many researchers in Indonesia are going, and these directions show the effort to transcend the traditionalist and globalist spectrum that characterized early discourse on English language education in Indonesia that I mentioned earlier. So now English is seen in a more positive light. Of course, we still have some studies such as Munandar, who show that there is evidence of Indonesians continuing to view English as a manifestation of the Western culture. However, there are a lot more studies, right, that provided evidence to the contrary. And these studies show an apparent ideological shift, right? So, for example, one of them is Stockton, and Stockton has made a shrewd observation when he said that the strong influence of the Muslim majority population has meant the creation of a nationalist recultured English. So this recultured English has been stripped of Western liberal values, or an Islamic English with its own culture and values. And to a large extent, I could see the evidence to Stockton's statement. Now, the pluricentric movement has occurred in Indonesia. The earliest detection came with Professor Darjo Wijoyo observing a shifting paradigm from accuracy to fluency when he noted the emergence of word Englishes. So at that time, he did not argue for pluricentric English, but he detected that word Englishes was already there, right? And embracing a pluricentric approach means moving away from native speakerism, right? The idea that was introduced by Adrian Holiday. During the 2000s and 2010s, it might be premature to say that there was a shifting paradigm to pluricentric English. Well, in particular in the early 2000s, right, to take place at that time, because even until now, we still have mainstream scholarship continuing to see English as a foreign language. So, for example, Professor Junaidi Mistar and Professors Fuad Abdul Hamid and Baharuddin Mustafa, even until 2010, they still saw English as a foreign language. However, signs of paradigm shift appeared at that time, with Lauder, for example, introduced the Kacherubian circle and Modiano's model. And what are they? You may be familiar with Kacherubian circles and the Modiano model, where we have the expander circle consisting of countries such as China, Egypt, Indonesia, Israel, and so on. The outer circle consisting of Bangladesh, Ghana, India, Kenya, Malaysia, and so on, and the inner circle consisting of the United States, the United Kingdom, England, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, right? So the inner circle, that's the native speaker countries. The outer circle, that's where English is used as an official language. And the expanding circle, that's where English is used as a foreign language. However, the Modiano model is a bit different because we're not looking at different circles, but we're looking at convergence of varieties, right? Unifying into one English as an international language characteristic, where we have the common core, where we have American English and then major varieties, and then British English and other varieties sharing one particular one characteristic that's called the common core. Now, in Indonesia, the idea of word Englishes has turned into a tradition, right? A scholarship tradition. Mukminatin, for example, argued against the imposition of native speakers' lingua cultural norms in pedagogy, in teaching materials, and assessment. And recently, Professor Hanung Trioko from Universitas Islam Negeri in Salatiga and his colleague argued for the exposition of students to diverse varieties of Englishes from outer and expanding circles through podcasts, and they found how using podcasts was useful in order to improve the positive impression of the students on the different varieties of English. And then another line of scholarship is about the emergence of Indonesian English. The question that I put in here is it Indonesian English or Indonesian Englishes? So the earliest detection of the emergence of Indonesian English occurred several years ago when Dr. Hywel Coleman identified that it already occurred. And then we also have recent studies by Endarto arguing for the emergence of Indonesian English. However, myself and a few other people, we argue that it might be premature to designate the non-native English linguistic features as Indonesian English because it is not endonormatively stabilized yet, right? So it is not categorically distinct, right? It is not a distinct or linguistic variety. So it may not be there yet. We can see them, right, the different features as characteristics, right? But they are not really showing an endonormative stabilization. to infer as a linguistic variety. And then at the same time, myself, among other people, Professor Fuad Abdul Hamid and Professor Baharuddin Mustafa, we argue that the super diverse context of Indonesian suggests varieties of English being spoken by Indonesians, and these varieties are likely to emerge as the context of Indonesian suggests varieties of English spoken by Indonesians are likely to be as varied as varieties of Indonesian. So for that reason, then there is the potential emergence of Indonesian Englishes rather than Indonesian English in decades to come. Now, another line of scholarship is EIL, which is English as an International Language. There are people such as Hasanti and Dr. Christine Manara and Dr. Nugrahani Zacharias arguing for the adoption of EIL. And EIL basically argues against the continuing dominance of the native speaker forms. And these people have shown how an EIL paradigm is useful because it brings awareness, right, and of the different varieties of English and flexibility when it comes to pedagogy. And then myself, amongst others, such as Dr. Zulfa Sakia, we argue that actually now we have English, right, as a lingua franca, and it is not realistic and to require our learners to have or to acquire native speakers-like pronunciation. And it is not plausible for them to use the native speaker norms in teaching, right, and learning. And then I argue that Indonesia is currently transitioning from an EFL to an EFL perspective, an idea that has been supported by Professor Andy Kirkpatrick. And we think that the time is now right for Indonesia to officially acknowledge ELF and to use it as a basis for curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment. The last line of scholarship is recent, right? And if you're familiar with global Englishes, this theory introduced by Nicola Galloway and Heathrows from University of Oxford, then this idea of global Englishes seeks a unified theory because it attempts to reconcile word Englishes, English as an international language, translanguaging, and ELF, or English as a lingua franca. And this is an inclusive and equitable approach to English language teaching. Why? Because it values linguistic diversity and it promotes effective communication. Now, how does pluricentric English relate to the social-linguistic concept of superglossia and the global south? So this concept of superglossia that I introduced in 2020 is about Indonesia being a polycentric social-linguistic situation in which linguistic varieties and practices of language mixing perform relationships that are complex, dynamic, often interglossic, and sometimes intraglossic, reflecting their varying degrees of status, influence, and order of importance. So when we talk about linguistic varieties in Indonesia, we're not just talking about Indonesian, we're not just talking about English, we are also talking about other indigenous languages, such as Javanese, Sundanese, Batak, and others, as well as regional lingua francas. So for example, we have Manado Malay, we have Papuan Malay that serve as regional lingua francas. And these languages, they have different degrees of status, influence, and order of importance in regional societies. And we haven't really observed that. So by introducing superglossia, I came up with the idea of looking at Indonesia's socio-linguistic constellation as one unified and cohesive situation. So where does English situate within Indonesia's superglossia? English, in this respect, competes with Indonesian, and actually it is the H, or the high variety in some contexts. And when we have this post-structuralist approach to social linguistic in Indonesia, then we can see the flexible designation of English, where in the education domain, English is a foreign language, But when it comes to communication, it has a new category. It is a lingua franca. In other contexts, English is actually an additional language. So in some contexts, English can be a foreign language, it can be a lingua franca, and it can also be an additional language. Now, given that situation, then ELF awareness has started to permeate in the realm of English language education in Indonesia, and it has created a new center of normativity where English is championing the socio-linguistic situation above Indonesian and other indigenous languages in the country. Now, there is an interesting concept introduced by Dr. Obaid Hamid from University of Queensland, English as a Southern language. In this respect, English as a language of the global South, where it is used as a tool for linguistic, cultural, and political resistance. So the Southerners, these are the people such as ourselves, right? People in Malawi, in Tanzania, in Mexico, in Malaysia, in Brazil, and many other countries that do not really use English as a native speaking language, as a native language. People who do not really follow the Western view of knowledge production. So we are the Southerners, whereas people such as those in the United States, England, and other parts of Europe, these are the Northerners, right? So we don't have English, right, as a northern language, but we have it as a southern language. And Professor Sationo Sugiharto also argued that the colonial and global South inclined English language education actually transcends the neoliberalist and neo-imperialist discourse propagated by the the global North perspective. Now, the conclusion. As a conclusion, English in Indonesia has shifted from a monocentric to a pluricentric orientation, and pluricentric English in Indonesia is multifurcated because it is not just about what English is, but it is also about EIL, ELF, and global Englishes. And that's what makes it really dynamic and interesting in Indonesia, because we don't only have one scholarly tradition, right? Different scholars in Indonesia have different points of view, and that's really good. And then my next observation is that the natural evolution of English in Indonesia could actually develop as something, as a new research strand, because it might develop as an exciting new research perspective, right? Our new research agenda in the upcoming years. So that is the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention. And these are the key readings. So if you're interested, there are some really good thoughts discussed in these readings. So thank you again, and I look forward to discussing this concept more.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pak Subhan. We're really sorry for the time constraint that
Yeah, that's okay.
make all the presentation packed. And I'm wondering, like, whether we have a question and answer session because the time is quite packed. So, maybe I will open for one brief questions if there is one. It's always interesting to discuss about this, but please use your raise hand feature if you do have one question for Pak Subhan. Okay. Or maybe audience you can address your question to Pak Subhan via chat box, maybe Pak, for the offline response. Okay, next. Thank you so much, Pak Subhan. Your presentation have made me reflect whether I'm belong to the globalist, traditionalist, or should I revisit the ELT in my teaching and so on. Pak Syed, really sorry. Would you please put it in the chat box? Really sorry for that. Okay. Thank you so much.
Kenapa harus mendirikan Mandarin Center? Karena nanti di program.
Okay. Now, we're going to continue, okay, with the next agenda that will be for Pak Nizamuddin Sadiq. Pak Nizam is the head of how can I say, managing director of GEPRIN. Okay. Now, Pak Nizam will have a presentation about GEPRIN, a brief presentation about GEPRIN, but it will be mostly presented through a video. And I believe Pak Nizam will have the authority, more authority to introduce us and to get us closer to GEPRIN. So, Pak Nizam, time is yours.
Thank you very much, Mbak Yulia. Please, Mas Saripul, play the video, please.
Bisa dilanjutkan ke
Okay, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great honor and gratitude that I stand before you today to celebrate the first anniversary of GEPRIN. As we have just seen in opening video, the establishment of GEPRIN in 2025 marks not only the birth of a new teacher association, but also the realization of a vision to create a scholarly community devoted to research and academic collaboration. The long journey leading for the GEPRIN's official announcements remind us that this association was not born overnight. Rather, it was an outcome of careful thought, shared aspiration, and collective determination. An encouraging sign that GEPRIN will continue to grow and develop in the years ahead. From the earliest days, GEPRIN has placed its focus on global analysis and the internationalization of higher education in Indonesia, area of study and practice that are increasingly shaping academic discourse and institutional transformation worldwide. In its first year, GEPRIN has succeeded in formulating a vision, mission, and organizational structure that now serve as the foundation upon which this association may confidently sail to the sea of the world. As documented in the earlier video, GEPRIN warmly welcomes practitioners, researchers within its of global Englishes, EMI, EAP, ESP to join us in advancing research and collaboration that make a meaningful contribution both nationally and globally. Equally important are the values that GEPRIN upholds, captured in the simple yet profound phrases, growing together and contribute. These values remind us that while the field of the academic pursuit is often demanding, the spirit of collaboration and the willingness to contribute, even through modest steps, can over time bring about significant impact. It is through such shared values that GEPRIN envision building a community committed to producing impactful research and nurturing a culture of academic generosity. Looking forward, GEPRIN has laid out its strategic direction through 4 divisions: education and professional development, research development, dissemination, and partnership. These divisions will guide us in pursuing what the term double-track development, strengthening good governance on one hand and enhancing academic capacity on the other. In this spirit, GEPRIN aspires to create avenues for teaching, research, publication, enterprise, consultation, and publishing. While the journey ahead may be long and winding, we believe that progress begins with a single, deliberate step. From the initial spark of discussion in 2023 to GEPRIN's official investment in July 2024, and now to this moment of commemoration in 2025, we are reminded that anniversaries are not only moments of celebration, but also a reflection and renewed commitment. On behalf of GEPRIN, allow me to extend my deepest gratitude to all of you present today. Your encouragements, collaboration, and support are the very pillars upon which this association will continue to grow, contribute, and reach new horizons. Happy first anniversary to GEPRIN. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Pak Nizam. Happy first anniversary to GEPRIN. Hopefully, GEPRIN can bring about impactful, how can I say, influence to the English language teaching in Indonesia. Thank you, Pak Nizam. And I think we have wrapped up the main agenda for today. And now I will hand over the floor to Ibu Tari as the MC. Ibu Tari, please.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Yulia, for moderating this impactful presentation from Professor Nurmala and also Professor Subhan. And congratulations, happy anniversary for first GEPRIN. Okay, Bapak Ibu, as we come to the end of today's Fulbright Research presentation, I would like to sincerely thank our distinguished speaker, Professor Dr. Nurmala, and also Professor Subhan Zein for their insightful presentation. Much appreciated also for Aminef, GEPRIN, and also Universitas Brawijaya for organizing this impactful agenda. I also want to thank all of you, our participants, for your feedback, ideas, and engagement. Your presence and contributions have enriched today's discussions and have made this research presentation a collaborative success. Thank you once again for being here, and we look forward to connecting again soon. Have a great day. Bye. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you,
everyone. Have a
Pak
great
Subhan. Thank you very much,
time.
Bu Mala. See you soon, Pak Subhan. Bu
You
Mita, thank you
all.
very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.